1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, it's just about 6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. Kind of cool Thursday morning. I don't even know if it's past 50 degrees yet. I have no idea what the temperature is out there. Is it cold out there? Is it cold? Looks like it's cold. You know, Robin, I remember being down in the Villages one time. I think I was doing my laundry down there or something.
Yes.
And there was an accident on Highway 441, and there was a child, a young boy, in the back of a pickup truck. And the accident caused him to be ejected from the back of the pickup truck. And it was just such a horrible thing to see. And I don't know really what happened to him, but I watched a helicopter land in the street and then take him to a trauma center. And my first question was, wow, where do they bring him? Is it Orlando? Is it Gainesville? Where is it? And it was anywhere but Ocala, because there was not one here. And in doing the news, so many times we'll have a story, and over the years it would always say, was airlifted to the trauma center at Shands or the trauma center in Orlando or wherever, and it was never to the trauma center in Ocala. So a lot of people did a lot of hard work and made it happen. We have a trauma center in Ocala.
Yes, we do.
And the rest of it, I don't understand, because that was such a successful decision, from what I understand. It sounds like it's been successful. Dr. Ang was here. Dr. Darwin?
Yes.
Ang was here, and he's one of the trauma surgeons. And he basically just said, look, this is what I do. I help people get well, and I don't see why somebody wants to take this away from us. And somebody does. There's a lawsuit, and he said it was filed on Christmas Eve. Bad timing, as far as I'm concerned.
Very
Merry
bad.
Christmas.
So we have in the studio two gentlemen who, and it sounds like a legal thing. And so we need people to be well. We don't need legal fights when it has to deal with our health and our children's health. Hello. Two great men from our community are here to talk to us about this, and they are in a position to perhaps do something about it. Charlie Stone is here. He's a member of the Florida House of Representatives, or Representative Charlie Stone, representing the 22nd District. Right, Charlie? Good morning, Charlie. And Dennis Baxley, a great contributor to our community. He is here also as a state representative representing the 23rd District. So it's an honor to be able to say we have two state representatives in our studio.
Good to be with you.
Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Charlie. And all right, you guys take it from here. Can you help us understand what exactly this lawsuit is about? What are they thinking? By the way, I don't think there's any private citizen who is on their side. Even the people who live in Gainesville, they want us to have one too.
Well, it does get more complicated than that, because it is a delicate discussion, the balance between quality of care and the issue of access, and how do we balance these two. And over the years, there's been quite a debate on how to distribute these trauma resources, and they are limited because you have a very specialized group of people, and you need a certain amount of activity to make that work, and they try to have an overall plan for the state. But in the same balance, you have a matter of access, and here in Trauma Center section, this district's called TSA 6. We have a lot of people. I mean, when you go from the Villages all the way up to Alachua, and particularly Citrus is in this, it's a long journey to move a trauma patient during that golden hour from the Villages or Ocala to get them to the trauma center in Shands. And so we're very grateful for our relationship with Shands, but this has gotten down to be more of a food fight. They're trying to hold on to that whole area, and some of them professionally, I think that's what's needed. But in fact, the most poor quality is no access. And that's the situation that we have if they back up on this decision. What they've been doing is challenging the rules by which they establish and grant these trauma center license. And we have gone through that process here in Ocala, at Ocala Regional Medical Center. This has been open for some time now and has a great record since 2012 of accomplishing some life-saving feats. And to draw back and try a political, a legal maneuver to try to undo this, to bring all this into Shands is very problematic for the citizens of this area, and I think we've got to stand up and defend them.
Yeah, man, and thank you for doing that, because nobody can do it better than you guys. And Dr. Eng, if I remember the statistics, 97% survival rate of the people who've come to the trauma center. And if they succeed in taking it away from us, the first child that dies because we didn't have a trauma center here is going to be the worst tragedy that we could ever experience.
And you are correct, Larry. And that is really the bottom of all of this, is providing a service that is much needed in our community.
Yeah.
The lawsuit itself, of course, Representative Baxley and I are not privy to all the information that's involved in the lawsuit, but it goes back to what we refer to as a certificate of need. Does the community really need it? And I think it's been proven time and time again that this community does need the trauma center. So Representative Baxley and myself have been supportive of the trauma center located at the hospital. The lawsuit, I think, takes it probably out of context. Well, what they really are trying to say is there's not enough cases to justify having a location here as well as at Shands and Gainesville. Well, my thought to that is, thank God there's not enough cases to have them both overflowing, but at the same time, if you have a facility that's going to provide that level of service that saves lives, then I'm all in favor of that. That directly impacts this community's quality of life, and so
we have to look at the growth factor too. I mean, we're projected, this north central area of Florida is right on the cusp of leading this economic recovery, and it's projected, we'll have another 50,000 people here in just the next few years. And so I don't think any preparation, as much time as it takes to prepare and move into a readiness to establish these kinds of things, we need to look at that growth record and say, this is only going to be more of a need, not less. I mean, we have millions of tourists here. It's not just the residency requirement. It's the number of people that visit Florida and are in this north central area of Florida. And clearly, it's very disorienting to move people. For example, if you have somebody that's injured, and our elder population, they're prone to having traumatic incidents because of their age. They are vulnerable. Even a fall at home is a big trauma incident and could be a very significant emergency during that golden hour of getting them in front of the right physicians in a trauma center. And so when you look at those factors and how disoriented it is just to dislocate the patient, and then the wife is standing there, what are you going to do with her? And she's disoriented about going to Orlando or Gainesville. She knows Ocala. Her friends or neighbors will drive her up here. She can be with her husband through this incident. And those kinds of human sides to this equation need to be weighed. And I think it supports this. The biggest thing is we've gone through the process. We have the trauma center open. It's really cruel to think about withdrawing that level of service for this TSA 6 when they've worked hard to achieve this level, and Ocala Regional Medical Center is being willing to make the investment to get us to this level of trauma care.
So where and when is the actual case going to be heard, and will you guys be able to make statements at wherever this is happening?
Well, once it kind of moves into the judiciary, we're usually not on top of every detail of that, and a lot of it relies on the judge and what kind of timelines he has to make decisions about what's been put before him. But meanwhile, we need to go ahead and encourage the Department of Health to sustain their position of keeping this trauma center open, dedicate the resources to defend their decision. They're the ones that granted this license. And the Surgeon General is from Ocala, so he's in a particular awkward position because he's got to make decisions for the entire state, but he also knows the immediate need because his family lives here.
If this is an unfair question, I apologize, but is there a way that we can understand as lay people what exactly is the difference between the emergency room and the trauma care unit? What is the difference between those two?
Go ahead, sir.
It's a tough
well,
one.
it's a technical issue, but it has to do with surgeons and a support staff that are trained for specific trauma incidents, and that's why it gets into a very technical expertise level, and that's why you need somebody like the Department of Health managing and licensing this so that they have the adequate personnel, facilities, procedures, and they've adopted these rules to what qualifies and what allows you to accomplish that. But clearly it's a level of specialization in trauma incidents, trauma physicians, trauma support, technical healthcare technicians that know this equipment, know these procedures, and are very focused. So it's a very technical area of healthcare that is specifically designed with specific training for these individuals.
I guess we can suffice it to say that the doctors know what is emergency room status and what is trauma center status, so that's kind of beyond us.
It's simply a more sophisticated level of care that can intervene in trauma incidents that has huge beneficial numbers in terms of its effect to save lives during that critical first hour.
Do we as the public have any influence at all on something that might be a clear-cut legal issue? I mean, if the judge says, "Lord, this is the legal," I don't care if you got 100,000 people outside with signs. Is he going to listen to us? Because I don't think there's been one call saying that we need to get rid of our trauma center.
Well, what we're trying to do is build a public response of this need, because it does speak. The decisions and the format eventually of where this discussion needs to happen is in the Department of Health and a regulatory structure, not in a courtroom. And to try to maneuver and try to unplug what's been granted under these conditions. We just had a meeting in Tallahassee, I think it was last week, of some of the stakeholders in this sophisticated area to have this discussion. Well, if the rules need to be rewritten or if there needs to be a reevaluation, let's do it at the Department of Health. Let's do it at the legislative level. Let's not bicker out in the courtroom this decision when lives hang in the balance. And these kind of maneuvers, I think, are the inappropriate way to have this discussion and resolve how these will be administered.
Yeah, I agree.
And we were educated by Dr. Ang that the trauma surgeons just do not stay in the hospitals, that if there is a wreck or something outside the hospital, they physically go there to that wreck to provide the utmost care.
Well, it does. It opens a door for a lot of other immediate responses, and they do what's necessary. The other thing is, the supplement to it and the argument is, well, we have helicopters. Well, I'm telling you, I was an ambulance attendant in the early days, in the prehistoric days before emergency medical services became as sophisticated. And Hires Funeral Home, where I worked as a college student, I was also an ambulance attendant, and we made ambulance calls. And I can tell you there were many times that weather conditions like today grounded aircraft, and you were strictly on the ground.
Oh, wow.
And when you get to that stage, the weather is determining your life. And a lot of people in the country right now are feeling that equation, and it's uncomfortable. And to rely just on that helicopter transport to get within that hour of care is not a dependable format if you have enough people, and we've had enough growth in TSA 6 to support this trauma center and have demonstrated it since 2012.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this is a campaign, but it's like none other. I mean, the one who wins is me. The one who wins is Robin and everybody in this room, because if you guys need to be applauded because you're in a position to do something none of us can do. And this is not self-serving in any way for you guys, except for the fact that it's going to help you just as much as it helps us. I mean, I can't imagine anybody being opposed to this. And any judge who goes against it probably isn't listening to the people. We hear the people here. Mm-hmm. I mean, they call in all the time. And when they hear this subject come up, it's like, why? Why is it going away? The one question came up, what is the difference between trauma and emergency room? And we sort of, that's beyond our pay level or whatever they say. But the fact is, doctors know that there's an important reason for this. And the fact that we didn't have it forever and only got it a year ago, and according to Dr. Ang, I think he said 2,000 patients have come through their care. Mm-hmm. 97% have survived. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Those
That's
are
pretty
very
good numbers.
And the public response should be to communicate with Shands Healthcare that please don't take our trauma away. Get them to back off. Send messages to them, write to them. We are in a service area and do benefit from their presence. And we want to have a good working relationship. And we're probably going to have an even more significant relationship when the county hospital, Monroe Regional Medical Center, it goes through this merger. It looks like we'll have a management relationship with Shands. We want that to be a good relationship. So, I don't think you need to yell at people, but what you do need to do is express yourself that you wish Shands would back off of this and allow us to continue with our trauma care center here. Without intervention from them legally. I think you need to write to your state representatives so we can go in front of decision makers in the Department of Health and say, look, our community needs this. They've substantiated the need. They will support this. And to the Department of Health, I think you need to write to the Surgeon General and let him know where you stand. Public opinion does affect policy, and I don't care how that policy is made. This is not just a judicial decision. This is a setting where there's going to be some decisions made about the distribution of trauma care, and I think certainly those that are already open should be grandfathered into any changes in the rules.
And all things good happen when people work together. Both of you gentlemen represent different districts. You have different needs, but when there is a consistent need for the same thing, you join forces.
Well, Representative Stone has some rural area, particularly Levy County, that you're talking more distance, you're talking more issues here. Levy County and also, of course, West Marion is so heavily populated with on top of the Whirl and the other communities that are all along the 200 corridor. We already know it's hard for them just to get to an emergency room. And to think about a trauma center and getting out of that congested area, I'll let him speak to the specific need of West Marion population on 200.
Yeah. West Marion is definitely a significant need because of the retiree, the population of that corridor. And as Representative Baxley just mentioned, over in Levy County, it's almost a death situation in an automobile accident just to get transported back around. And from Levy County to Shands or wherever they may be transported to. So there's dire need in the rural communities such as Levy County that I represent. But I do want to go back a little bit on that legal side of it. There's other communities that is affected, not only Marion County and Ocala. There's two other facilities that's also tied up in that lawsuit as well. So it's meaningful for many people other than just us.
Wow. Now, if as a representative, you have constituents who are going to hold you responsible for this if you don't do anything, and or if it goes through. So how worried should we be? As many people as I hear from that say we need to do something to keep this, it seems like we've got a lot on our side. I mean, I can't imagine. We've invited. Can the other side come on and say something, and nobody's answered?
Correct.
So
well, I'm not sure that the other side is.
They don't want to talk.
I don't know that they have a lot of ammunition to use to stand on their particular case. It's all legal. So consequently, they just tell you it's in litigation and they're not going to be allowed to make any comments about it. What we can do, what the Representative Baxley and myself can do, is actually encourage and urge our Department of Health. Dr. John Armstrong is the state Surgeon General, and he's a friend of ours. We've known him for quite some time. And I think he's went through a really good process. He's had community meetings throughout the state of Florida to talk about trauma centers and the needs and the certificates that the Department of Health issues. So they're in the process of rewriting the rules as we speak. The certificate that was issued to this trauma center was based on an old ruling that I think had been updated, but the Department of Health still utilized that rule, and therein lies the legal confrontation is, did they have the authority to issue that certificate? So once that's decided, then we'll know where we're going to go from there. Chances are, if the judge has it in his on his bench today decides that the Department of Health didn't have the authority, there'll
Right.
probably be another round of litigation beyond that.
So does this send up a red flag for you as legislators? Do you say, okay, this shouldn't have ever happened, so we need to change the laws?
Well, there's always ultimately a legislative remedy, but I don't know that this is a highly technical decision, and I think the process that we have, basically the Surgeon General appoints people who are qualified to a panel that evaluates these things and makes the recommendations based on the rules that have been adopted. So the adoption of rule process, this is my frustration in it and my ambition, and that is, let's move the debate from the courtroom back to the Department of Health and have these discussions and work out a trauma plan for Florida that works, and respect these that are already open and the service providers that are already relying on this, the constituents that are already relying. Almost everything we do legislatively, we grandfather in existing operations. And so rather than us I'm trying to put the pressure on to move this debate from the courtroom back to the Department of Health. Let's resolve it there professionally with the right professional guidance, and let's have public input. Let's have these public hearings, and then as the rule is adopted, we'll abide by that, but we'll respect those that are already open.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And how about the funding? Where does the funding come from for the trauma center itself?
Well, largely, most of the funding comes from payment from clients, their patients. So there's a lot of money in healthcare, and so that's a part of why this has become such a debate, because it's a financial matter for the hospitals involved. But the other part is the Department of Health that regulates this and makes sure that we have the right level of care and the quality of care. Those are charges that are legislatively handed to Department of Health, and they have a significant budget to do those things.
And I think that's why it infuriates everybody. It is about the money. And, when you have somebody, your family member, whose health, whose life could be at stake because somebody else wanted a bigger piece of the pie, there's just something wrong with that. So I applaud you guys for what you're doing. I would like to ask the listeners, since we're recording this as a video and we'll put it up on YouTube by this afternoon, please share this. Robin will put it on Facebook. I think the way that Representative Baxley and Representative Stone have expressed their thoughts on this have made a lot of sense. Share it and repeat it and share it again.
Yeah, and the big thing is communicate. Communicate politely. You don't have to yell at people and holler at them. But send communications to Shands, mail, email, calls, and say, please, withdraw your lawsuit and let us continue with our trauma care center. It's essential to our community. And we appreciate you and what you do, and we're going to continue to rely on you for other issues. But we do need this level of care. And then also to communicate with Dr. Armstrong at the Department of Health to please defend his decision, and please continue to work on this issue and try to maintain that it's very important to you that the trauma center in Ocala be preserved.
And Larry, there is a group that's been organized in support of the trauma center, and I think their website, if I remember correctly, is saveourtraumacenter.org. I believe there's a lot of information on that website as well.
Yeah,
so they could
and I believe they've bought time. They've purchased time. Does anybody know that?
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the radio. So I've heard the ad. I didn't know if it was something we did or if they actually bought time. So in other words, somebody's putting money into something that it's not like a normal campaign.
Correct.
There's nobody going to be holding an office at the end of this. They're putting a lot of money just so that we all can have this thing that we already have.
Correct.
Well, and that is, it is ultimately a public decision. It's a public policy decision, and you have every right to speak into that. And if you don't speak into it, you're subject to someone else making the decision. So I think it's good to be informed on this and begin communicating to these levels of leadership, both at Shands, both at the Department of Health, and even to us. It's an arsenal for us to go in and have those discussions with the health committee chairs to say, this is very important to our community. Here's the evidence. I have 200 people that have said, please defend our trauma center. So I appreciate those emails coming to me also. And, of course, we're on the web there at myfloridahouse.gov, just Dennis.Baxley at myfloridahouse.gov. And any of that we have, you can go on a website at myfloridahouse.gov, and it'll guide you to all the members that are related to this, or to other members, that look at the members that are on the healthcare committee. Communicate to them that this is important to you, that Ocala be able to maintain its trauma center, so that we build a momentum that says we're going to find an answer that respects the trauma center that exists in Ocala.
And this is going beyond our community, because both of you gentlemen are pioneers in this aspect, because this is a huge state. The United States is a huge country, and there are probably other areas that are going through the same thing, and they don't know how to go about it. But by looking at what both of you gentlemen are doing, they have the opportunity to see how something like this can be put in place in their area.
Well, it's certainly something I want to remind people of all across the country, that this is your government. As it makes decisions, you don't have to sit there passively. You
That's
can
right.
interact. This
That's
government
right.
is yours, and it's only a reflection of people's ability to influence it. And if we don't do that part of it, if we don't do that job, then we're subject to those stakeholders to do whatever they want to.
Robin takes notes, and Robin does a really good job at making it easy for people. So on the Facebook, it'll have not only this video, but I'm sure the contact information for you guys, as well as the folks up at Shands that need to be contacted. Thank you both for coming in, for doing this. I know you guys are busy. Representative Baxley, Representative Stone, thank you for what you're doing, and I applaud what you're doing. And everybody applauds what you're doing. And thank you for coming on our show to tell us about it.
Thank you for opening that window of opportunity, and things do matter, and you, the voter, you, the citizen, you matter. And, speak up and take back the policy, even in this area.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
Look who just walked in the room. Joel Wiesner from What's Up Ocala. Hey, Joel, I'm looking for something to do this weekend. You got any ideas?
Absolutely. Check out our event calendar online at www.whatsupocala.com.